You're listening to the Exhibitionist podcast, hosted by Nicola Reeder. This podcast is brought to you by InspiringExhibitors.com and Pro Extra, a wholly owned division of 12th Man Solutions Limited.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 42 of the Exhibitionist podcast. Welcome back this week. How are you doing? It is creeping ever closer to Christmas, so we hope now that the shops are open again, you're able to get out there and support your local high street and are starting to enjoy some of the Christmas preparations, although they will be slightly unusual this year. Very shortly, I am going to hand over to our conversation with Zoe Lacey-Cooper. Now, Zoe was involved this year in moving very quickly her event from live to virtual, from offline to on. And we've heard so much about virtual events this year, so it's great speaking to Zoe about her experiences and what she learnt through that process. But before we get into that conversation, what else could I be talking about this week, apart from the launch of the brilliant We Create Experiences campaign by One Industry, One Voice? You may have seen this launch on Monday, and it's the coalition of all of the event industries coming together to try and powerfully influence all of those businesses that would usually book events to keep doing that in 2021. We know our industry within the exhibitions arena have been absolutely fantastic in lobbying the government, in pulling together those measures that will help exhibitions open safely and to demonstrate that we can open them safely. But actually the total event industry in the UK is much more powerful when we all speak as one voice, and with an £84 billion impact on the economy every year, pulling together music, sporting events, show business, weddings, festivals, all of those different industries that actually many of us work across, we have a much stronger and much more powerful voice. So they've been doing some great work over the summer in pulling together that really clear and concise communication on behalf of all of us as to how we feel we can open up the industry again safely. And that's one job in terms of lobbying government. Great job done. The other job we have to do is inspire confidence in both businesses and visitors to come back to those events and put them on. So really the campaign that they have launched this week is about exactly that. It's about saying to businesses, if you used to run in consumer events, if you used to go to exhibitions, if you used to put on festivals, keep doing that in 2021. We are confident that we can do this safely, that we can get people back. And with a vaccine on the horizon, we have even more reason for optimism than ever before. Some research that they have released this week as part of this campaign had a couple of really interesting statistics in. One of those was that 75% of decision makers believe that the closure of events in 2020 has had a negative impact on their ability to market. And actually, we think about that in terms of exhibitions, that businesses haven't been able to meet and network with customers. But think of all the other sponsorship and advertising and hospitality opportunities that just aren't there at the moment because festivals aren't happening, because music events aren't happening, because fans can't go to sporting arenas. And all of our ability to market and to recover and move forward from what has been a really tough and challenging year is really impacted on because we just don't have those opportunities anymore. What they also found was that 96% of business leaders that responded to their survey said that events added value to their business, whether that's about staff well-being and morale, internal communications, whether it's about actually upskilling their teams and being able to grow and develop their own people. Of course, it has a impact on the bottom line and revenue, which is what we're all looking for in business. But some really positive results that they found and a really fantastic campaign. It is backed by a whole host of celebrities who are involved in the event industry, people like Tom Kerridge, Johnny Wilkinson, Claire Balding, but also people like Claire Roney from Macmillan, who actually talks about the charity impact because they can't have events, and that has had a substantial impact on their ability to operate. So a really, really great campaign. You can find it at One Industry, One Voice, and you can find it all over Exhibition News, Exhibition World, all of the different titles and publications in the industry. Just go and have a look at what they're doing. And if you can, just share it, shout about it, and tag people in it. And let's get those businesses that would usually interact with events back and booking us all to work with them in 2021, because it's looking like it's going to be a really, really busy year. So great news to open the show with this week. I'm now going to hand over to our conversation with Zoe and hope you enjoy the chat. So on this week's episode of the Exhibitionist podcast, I am very excited and energized actually to be speaking to Zoe Lacey-Cooper. Now, Zoe is the Portfolio and Events Director for Diversified Communications with specific responsibility for the Accountex events. But Zoe is also a founding member of Women in the Exhibitions Network and a judge for the AEO and Exhibition News Awards and Accountancy Awards. So welcome to the show, Zoe, but do you ever sleep?
No, of course not. I have children.
You sound like a very busy woman.
Oh, I like to keep busy. We have to in these times. Takes my mind off everything else that's going on in the world.
Absolutely. So Zoe, welcome to the show. It is brilliant to have you here. Thank you for your time. So for our listeners that don't know you, do you want to just give us a little bit of background and about your experience and your current role?
So, as you said, I'm Portfolio Director of the Accountex portfolio. We do it's B2B accountancy bits and pieces. And I say accountancy and straight away people go, oh. Actually, it's a really, really interesting environment I work in. It's a very progressive industry full of very progressive entrepreneurs. It's all about tech, Nicola. So it's all about artificial intelligence, software, technology. They are a pretty forward-thinking profession. We don't give them enough credit, actually. So although I say Accountex and people just go a bit like, it's actually a really, really interesting industry to work in. So I'm currently managing the Accountex portfolio on that, covering anything from live, virtual, news, content, that kind of thing. I have been very lucky to work in media for over 20 years now. So I've done over 10 different industry sectors, ranging from nutraceuticals to natural products, to ski shows and outdoor shows. And I've done so many different industries. And I've settled at the moment into the accountancy profession, which I absolutely love.
Brilliant. It sounds good. And I think it's really interesting to hear from you that I think the natural reaction to accountancy might be, oh, really? But to hear that it is that kind of progressive tech, and you're certainly energized by it, that comes across.
Funnily enough, yeah. I mean, I used to do natural products and organic food in Sweden. I mean, you don't get more sexy than that. That's a real sexy, tangible product. And then you go from that to accounting and calculators and things. But actually, no, I work with some of the most forward-thinking influencers and gurus, and I'm just inspired every day by these people. So yeah, quite lucky, quite enjoy it.
It's so good to hear. And we were just chatting before we started the recording, but 2020 has been an incredibly challenging year all round. So how have you been coping with the last few months, both professionally and personally? How's things been in your world?
Well, I think everyone's world has kind of tumbled down around them, but I have two very young children. I had a 1-year-old when it was all happening, so you can imagine how that was working out when I have a child at school and a little 1-year-old as well. But with Accountex, this is kind of a large live event that we run. So I kind of went back to my roots. So I don't know if you know this, Nicola, but about 10 years ago, I used to actually run virtual events for the nutraceutical industry. So it's really interesting because I had kind of left those days behind me. Do you remember that about 10 years ago, everyone was like, this is the future, this whole Sim City thing going on. I ended up taking, instead of this virtual events job at UBM, I took the job at Diversified. So that's where my career just kind of split. And then I was kind of catapulted back in. So I'm like, I think we just might need to think about how this is going to work virtually, and kind of dug out all my old records and all the technology we used to use. And the funny thing is I just think we are placed now where we were then, kind of not really keen on it. I've had loads of webinars with all the other event directors on, what we should be doing, how we run it, do we do the virtual exhibition hall thing? And I still don't think we're quite there yet. So I'm kind of, that's where it's quite interesting.
So we know from what you've been saying that your background, you were virtual and then kind of went off into on a different path and did live, and then beginning of this year started to think, actually, we might need to bring this back to virtual. So how did you even start thinking about what can we do virtually? Tell me a little bit more about the process that you went through and what you were hoping to deliver in taking Accountex virtual.
Well, again, I keep saying to you, I work with some incredible exhibitors who are in the technology field. So I work with some very young, they're all young as well, they're all in their 30s, really young people writing code, developing software. And I do and speak to these people for every single day. And I had a call with one of my exhibitors, actually, a young global influencer guy who does all this technology stuff, and said, well, why don't we collaborate? Let's work with an association, work with an exhibitor, let's work with you, let's bring our communities together, let's collaborate and put something together that won't be commercial. We'll just put some content together, make it really simple, and just serve the community the best way we can. And it was as simple as that. So the technology guys put together all the platform. So they used a platform called Hey Summit, which is a really easy registration. You could kind of put all your speaker information in. Then you had us that did the marketing and had all the leads. And then you had the association, again, who had the kind of scope to promote it out and help us put the program together. And we created overnight a big beast that we had no idea that we were going to do so. So we had a 5-week lead time. We had no idea how it was going to happen. We said that you could upgrade for, I think it was like £10. You could upgrade to have recordings after the show, and everything that we raised was donated to charity. So it was the NHS charity, which is really timely with what was going on in the NHS during that. I was back in May. We ended up with 16,000 people register. We raised £45,000 for the NHS. And it was deemed quite a success, actually. It kind of laid the land for us to look at going global, running these things as a hybrid alongside live, working with our exhibitors to maybe do like theme days. It's just opened up but because we did it non-commercial, because we did it free, because we were offering like the charity element, it gave us the opportunity to just trial it out. So if anything went wrong or anything didn't go quite right, while we were finding our feet, it was really good that everyone just kind of understood that there was nothing commercial. We were just doing it for our community. And we were really pleased with the results.
It's amazing. Just picking up on some of the numbers that you shared there, just in case our listeners didn't catch those. That was 16,000 people registered and £45,000 raised for the NHS. So just phenomenal numbers in the context of what was going on in the world at the time. So congratulations to you and your team. That's absolutely brilliant. And I just wanted to pick up on that event in itself. Was it mainly content driven, or was there an opportunity for exhibitors and visitors to engage with each other, or was it purely kind of a platform for content?
We serve a really content heavy industry because it's all about regulation, tax. The accountants are very busy right now advising small business owners on how to survive through this. Yeah. So it was very, very content led, with obviously government guidance from HMRC. So all content. We had some of our top big players speak. Mutual benefit because they bring in a crowd, but also because they invested a lot in our live events. Kind of wanted to give something back for free. But no, there was no sponsors. There was no kind of breakout sessions or anything like that. It was all purely content. And just so you can kind of visualize how it worked, it was a 2-day event, and we ran 3 streams every hour on the hour. So kind of visualize that like 3 theatres running a session every hour on the hour. Bit of a big one, lessons learned, way too much for us to deal with. Right. We kind of did it, just about. And it was as simple as that. It was literally just Zoom calls every hour on the hour. And it was just as simple as that. We had, polls involved. We had Q&A at the end. But people just seemed really happy with that real simple element. Having the interactions with Q&A, really, really simple. Quite happy with that. Now we're running it the second time now. So we're running it in November. And this time it is commercial. We do have sponsors. We're running it so it's a bit more manageable in terms of content. But it's a different ball game because we're trying to fight the fires in terms of understanding the GDPR regulations. Again, we work with some very big corporations who exhibit and sponsor. They have internal legal teams who go through and make us sign all these T's and C's just for the GDPR element alone. So it's a bit of a big beast to try and work through. And also be fair to these people as well. You've got 250 exhibitors live in your live shows. How do you then offer just 10 sponsorship opportunities on something virtual? So we've had to be really considerate about how we do the offering, how we've managed it in terms of who first in, first out. We've introduced MOUs. First one to sign an MOU gets it, basically. So it's a very different world from when we were doing it non-commercial to commercial. Sure. But again, we're learning lots of lessons.
Absolutely. And I think I was listening to Sophie Holt on the Event Marketers podcast that she did around the research of how people are using virtual events. And I think it is that evolution that we've seen from very early on in the pandemic, where people were just get it done, I think is a phrase that she used for those early virtual events. It's like, just do it, just get something online for our community. Let's not worry too much about the commercials. Let's just get something for the community. You've obviously taken the next step now from that, learned some lessons and said, right, how do we commercialize it? But then looking forward, I think people were talking about this live versus virtual, which one's going to win? And we're seeing much more about hybrid, and it's a phrase that you just mentioned. So where do you see the next evolution really for you in terms of bringing live and virtual together in a more hybrid type event for Accountex?
So I've seen lots of virtual webinars. I've been on a few panels myself, and I think what we're trying, I kind of see that we're all trying to put a badge on everything. You know, like, let's put a badge on this now, and let's put a badge on what it'll look like in the future. And we were trying to do that 10 years ago, and it never really kind of worked. So I'm kind of doing it. It's all subjective to the industry you serve. You just have to don't see, oh, well, they're doing it, we should be doing it. You really have to just look at the community you serve. Is it content heavy? What kind of money have your sponsors got to sell as well? And we work, again, we're in a thriving industry that they have money and budgets and things like that. It is content heavy. So I do serve an industry that ticks the right boxes.
Sure.
But I also think about the other industries we do serve. You know, at Diversified, we run, you know, hospitality events like lunch, Commercial Kitchen, Natural Products London. You know, how do we serve those communities that some of them aren't even working? You know, how do you reach out to them? And again, you've got people who were like, well, let's do hybrid events. It's like, but think about the industry you serve. Is really subjective on what you should be doing. And again, my MD Carsten is really, really good and mindful of just not putting pressure on those where he's like, oh, well, look at Accountex, you know, but he's very mindful of that we all serve different industries and we have to react differently. I mean, for us, Accountex alone, I think, well, I'm taking it globally, which is a whole nother subject we can talk about another time. But we run, again, I'm just sort of just like, oh, let's run one in South Africa. Let's just see what happens. Did a one-dayer, few sessions, bit of content. I'm introducing myself to a new ecosystem in a different country. It was very successful, non-commercial, and we're rolling that out. So the future for what I'm doing in my world right now is kind of global. We want to take the Accountex brand global. We can do that very easily through virtual, establish our connections with the ecosystem and the associations to then maybe consider doing live when we're in a position to do so. So that's my little world. I just wish I could add a badge on it for everybody else, but it's a bit hard, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you make such a crucial point there that people are automatically assuming that if my event can't go ahead, then virtual is definitely the answer. And I need to be as an exhibitor, I need to be badgering my event organisers to go virtual, But actually, we know that people who are going to a virtual event are there for content. They're not really there to talk to exhibitors. They're there to learn and develop and pick information up, which, as you say, for your industry is perfect. That works brilliantly. For food and drink, where you want people to taste and feel and touch and smell and see something being cooked, that's really hard to bring to life through a screen. And it's probably not the right, so don't naturally jump to virtual is going to be the right in every situation. But you talk about those sponsors who are supporting you for your November event, and it is commercial, which is great. How do they make the most of that sponsorship? Obviously, you will offer them lots of value in terms of what you can give them, but how are they preparing themselves to really get the most out of those sponsorships?
Well, again, with the industry they're in, they also run their own events. So they really get events and how they work. They're very clear on their objectives and what results they want. You know, I do a lot of work in benchmarking at the moment because I know that my exhibitors will want to see the stats, because you have a lot of people who have unrealistic expectations. And actually with virtual, they're not, the conversions are really low. They are very, very low. And once you understand that your conversions from registration to turning up on the day is pretty low and there's not much you can do about it to change it, I think you can kind of move on and be a bit more realistic with what you're offering. What they're doing, I mean, it's a real simple thing. I mean, some of them are just talking for an hour. They've got a webinar and we've tied it in with the content, and they're obviously got the branding and the sponsorship. But for them, a lot of it is data. So again, what we've done with GDPR is we obviously, because they are clearly sponsors, they can't have access to all registration data. But there are ways of where they can have data from their session. You can do polls within the session to say, look, if you're interested, click yes. So then straight away, they've got their hot leads on the table there on the day. Then they have the leads from the people that are registered, and then they have the leads from the people that turned up on the day. And if that's what they want as an objective, then that works really, really well in terms of data and then getting kind of like the hot leads that come through. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, they're very clear. They're great to work with because they are very clear on how it all works.
Yeah.
And they treat us as the unbiased. I mean, they run loads of their own webinars. They do them probably better than we do. But we are the unbiased platform, and they utilize that in a way because they can't do that themselves. So I think that's where the benefit works.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there benchmarking, which would be great to pick up on, because I think we know from our experience, exhibitors aren't always brilliant at setting objectives and then measuring if they've delivered those objectives in a live environment. So when it comes to virtual, I can only imagine that there is even less chance of that happening. So what are you learning from the benchmarking work that you've been doing?
So I've done some really good conversation with Ruth Carter, actually, where I've done some top 10 tips on what to do for virtual. And the thing is, every month it changes. That's the funny thing. It keeps changing. So before lockdown, the best day to run a virtual conference was on a Tuesday, but now it's a Thursday, and now it could be a Wednesday. So we don't actually know what day is best to run a virtual conference. And simple things like, the best time of the day to do it, obviously 10 a.m. in the morning, but then you got virtual fatigue. Everyone does them at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, for example. The most interesting thing I discovered, if I've got time to share it, is I think we're all obsessed about the conversion. So you get them to register, you get them on the day. We're all obsessed about the conversions and the numbers on the day. But what you actually probably need to do to actually increase that 34 to 45% conversion rate, think right back to the element of registration, because actually your numbers start to diminish right from the point of marketing or launch. So you send out an email and you get them on your website, and then you get like 50% register or 50% don't. You've already lost 50% of your audience. Then they register, and then you've got to try and get them there on the day. That's another 50%, 35% cut down. So it's just numbers that just completely go down consistently throughout the whole campaign. So what you have to do is think really carefully about what you do from that initial point of registration. How do you really get them to register and sign up? And when do you send out your registration or launch email? So timing, days, and that kind of point of action at point of registration is probably more important than right at the end when you're trying to get them to sign on the day. And that is probably the biggest lesson I've learned, actually, with all that benchmarking work that I've done, to be honest with you.
And what do you think exhibitors can do to help get people to that event? Because it isn't the sole responsibility of an organizer to get people there. We've said that whether it's live or virtual, that those exhibitors should be working hard to get people there. What can they be doing?
I did something really cheeky this time round, commercially. So I said, for the sponsors who are speaking, I said, right, the rate is that, but we will knock off 15% of the rate if you guarantee a minimum of 2 email shots and 2 social media posts from us, Solus emails, because their community is actually pretty big themselves. So what we did is we gave them the choice, like, we'll do all the marketing for you, you don't have to do anything, or save some money and do a little bit for us. And then it's controlled. And we are then reaching people that we've not kind of reached out to before as well. So it's a bit of a combination of bits and pieces. But what we're essentially doing is we're getting them to promote it for us, and on top of what we're doing. And that actually has worked out quite well, that business model.
And it comes back to a phrase you used right up at the beginning, which was about collaboration. And I think we still see, whether it's live or whether it's virtual, so many exhibitors saying, well, I've paid the money to be there, so the rest is up to you. I just turn up on the day with a pop-up banner and they will come. And it kind of doesn't work like that. All you're paying for is a space on the floor and a little bit of marketing. But if you genuinely believe that event's worth investing in, then you should also invest the time to do the marketing to get the people there. And you don't need thousands of them. You probably need a few hundred good leads to make that show worthwhile. So.
100%. And some people do these webinars and they're like, oh, only 100 people turned up. I'm like, that is amazing. That's really good. That's anything. I mean, your conversion rates, again, benchmarking coming up here, but 34 to 45% are converted from registrations to on the day. quite a low amount, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there really is not much you can do to change that. You just can't. There's not. You can email them every day and force them to log on if you want, but you just can't. That is just what it is. And that's why I keep talking about when you start the process and the campaign, that's why it's so important, because you can change that figure a little bit more.
And I might be putting you on the spot slightly here, so so apologies for the pressure, but have we got any sense yet of the difference between the registration and drop-off rate for live versus virtual? Are they about the same? Is one more than the other?
Yeah, because we're playing around the sort of 40 to 60% with live, aren't we? Across the board. And that's been the same for 20 odd years. With live, it does vary. It really does vary in terms of what you're offering. I mean, I'm still yet to find that out, actually. I think the conversions are less, I would say, a lot less. So again, 35% on average is conversion for virtual, and you talk 50 to 60% for live. So yeah, live still has a better conversion rate from my experience. Yeah.
Well, and that's a shout out then to anybody who's got any of that research that has done any work on what that difference is, what that comparison is. Do let us know, because it would be.
We need some exploring to do some work on that for us.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting in terms of the numbers, because what we hear event organisers talk a lot about is kind of quoted registration numbers. So we've got 100,000 people registered for this event. The reality is you get 25,000 people there. It's never the number that event organisers quote, and that's absolutely fine. So in terms of objectives, do you have any sense of kind of what exhibitors should be thinking about as a metric to actually try and measure? What are the sort of things that they can measure from a virtual trade show to actually set some objectives in the first place?
I think that's why we do some more detailed things during the day, because I think, again, like I say, managing objectives is really, really important. But again, if they're just on a bit of a data party, then there's different ways of doing that. But a lot of people do want some kind of real decent leads, and they don't want the wastage. So like, as I said, I do things like, polls within the session so that they can go away straight away with, those that are generally straight up keen, who want to be kind of like, they want to set up conversations with them straight away, which is great. And it gives the sponsor straight away some immediate goodwill feeling, because it's all, these matches are all about, I felt it went well and I felt it went okay. Because that's all you can play on at the moment, because we don't really know the right result. And like I say, the conversions are so low. So it is always down to how that sponsor feels at the end of the day. And if you can give them a list from a poll of like 10 people who are straight away really, really interested in what they're doing, then that straight away just adds a bit of goodwill. Then they, so it is just lots of little bit of things. I mean, it is also relevant to what their objectives are. A lot of the time it is data. Can't measure brand exposure, can you really? It really is subjective to what they want.
Yeah.
It really
Which is the perfect answer, because it all comes back when people say to us, what should I be measuring at an exhibition? It's like, well, what do you want to achieve? I can't give you an answer until you tell me what it is you're hoping to actually get from it.
Yeah,
And the point being, even when you've given those exhibitors or those partners that data, they have to do something with it. Just getting that data isn't going to get a sale. You then have to know how you're going to follow it up and what your comms plan is and what else you're following up with. Have you got any sense, have most of your content that you shared so far been the webinar kind of presentation, or have you done like panels? Have you done demonstrations? Have you done kind of introductions to new software? Have you got any sense of what formats work particularly well?
Yeah, a bit of a variation actually. And panels always, oh gosh, they love that. If you put in a state of the market session at 10 a.m. and then you put in a panel discussion talking about the future, then you do a regulatory one. We do obviously lots of polls within there, not too many. And then we also have some lightning talks, which are like 10-minute TEDx ones. So we call them kind of like technology innovation talks, when actually it's the vendors talking about what new technology they have. But we mix that in with like a technology lightning talk kind of package. Yeah. So we do lots of various different things actually. I have to say we do lots of variations of things.
And I think that's the advice then to exhibitors is about, when somebody says, do you want to participate in this virtual event or even a live event, people naturally go, oh yeah, we'll do a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation. It's like, no, what could you do differently? Just challenge your event organizer, say, I want to do something crazy. I want to do a I don't know, let's all just get some pizzas ordered in and do a virtual pizza and a glass of wine and a chat, and think about something a little bit disruptive and a little bit different, because it doesn't always just have to be the 20 minutes PowerPoint.
Yeah, I mean, I have an exhibitor that does a big hires out the boat at XL and does all the drinks, and I think they did on one event, not our ones, I'm trying to convince them, they sent out gin packs. So everyone had a drink afterwards. Not many. I mean, it was limited, but it was brilliant seeing all the social media around people with their little gin and tonic packs that they received in the post. It was just wonderful. It was really, and like little goodies, like we have. Again, we're talking about like everyone loves the free goodies. So I'm thinking about setting things up like virtual goodie bags.
Yeah.
Again, just to get the exhibitors involved, if they want to give out a free beanie hat or a free notebook or a pen, just kind of getting that feeling of kind of a bit of, something that's a bit different than just standard webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've always talked about freebies and do they add value, do they not add value? And it totally depends what you're trying to achieve. It depends what you're...
No, we love them. It's my notebook.
Not the cupcakes. I think we've all had enough of cupcakes in this industry. But it is, sometimes when somebody's got a pen or a ruler or a notebook and it's there on their desk, you do get that longevity and that brand awareness. And it's very easy. Your attention to a virtual webinar is different to a face-to-face conversation, and you switch off and transition out of a virtual much quicker than you would a live conversation. So if you can send something to them afterwards, those hot leads, have a pack ready to send to them, then at least you're putting something in their workspace that's got your brand all over it. So have you enjoyed this experience of moving things online then and virtual?
It's funny going back to my old days, put it that way. I guess we're not using the technology as much as we used to. So we are doing it a very simplified version. Whereas before, and people know, you have these really fancy pants technology where they do the Sim City world, you create a person and you go in and talk in the expo halls. And there are, again, industries where I think that works incredibly well. That's not something that's going to work in my industry, so we're not looking into it. But, I have really enjoyed, again, learning the experience of just converting everything over. The one thing I have learned is the global element. I've been able to just start learning new industries in different countries, and making new relationships and actually trialing out and understanding. So my ecosystem in my head now is global. It's just not UK based. I'm doing one in Australia, one in North America, might do one in Scandinavia. And with that involves, kind of making new partnerships and meeting new people. And that's the part I love, actually. That's like starting my job all over again. And I've really enjoyed that. It's opened up a lot of opportunities, I have to say.
And that's one of the big things as a positive that's coming out of virtual, is that it grows your audience so much, and to markets that you would never have got people from Scandinavia or South Africa coming to a UK based show, but actually you're now getting them online and virtual, and it just, as the world continues to change and we leave Europe, we're going to need the world more, and that's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And as a rule of thumb, every new launch I do in a different country, the first edition is we donate all the recording money to charity. So the one in South Africa went to the Solidarity Fund. So that went out to a fund that was relevant to the COVID and health service out there. So again, it just adds good feeling. You look like kind of how serving the community. So then when you come in with your second edition, where you're a bit more commercial, you're a bit more excused. But to be able to kind of raise, £45,000 for the NHS, I mean, that was just
phenomenal.
Yeah, did not expect that. Not in the slightest. Absolutely not brilliant. At all. And that was lovely from the accountancy profession to donate that to the NHS and say, look, this is what we're trying to do to help.
Yeah, absolutely, all about building that community and collaboration. It's fantastic. So tell me what you have missed most about being on the shop floor in 2020.
Well, I had my little baby was 4 weeks old the last time I went to my event. As you know, I run the London one. I go once a year. So I've not been in a proper expo hall for 2 years now because my baby was born before my last one, and I feel sad. I miss my walkie-talkie. That's like my comfort blanket, That's my moment of truth when that walkie-talkie's in my hands, I miss needing the toilet and taking me hours to go there and back because everyone's talking to you. I miss simple little things like that. I missed it terribly. But with that comes the, getting comfortable with Zoom calls now. Again, the accountants have been doing all this Zoom stuff for years, and I just go, oh, can't I just pick the phone up? Why do I have to put the face on? And now I'm used to it. It's quite natural to me now. I'm quite used to doing it all, and it saves all the travelling, I guess. But I'm a very people person, so I just cannot wait to get back out there and start seeing all my friends and my buddies out there.
And it's strange what you miss as well. I'm even missing having the sore feet from being in heels all day on a theatre and walking from house. It's like, oh yeah, that throb in your feet on a night time with a glass of wine, thinking, oh, that's a good day's work. That is. I'm kind of missing it a little bit.
I go in the morning on the event, and I have a bag, and I have 3 pairs of shoes in there. It starts high and goes down in levels of heels. But things like that I miss. Going in with my bag of shoes. With the basic tech. We'll get there. We will get there.
We will. Absolutely. We've all just got to believe we'll be back before too much longer. So we are currently in lockdown Mark 2. Tell me, what is keeping you going during lockdown? Any good habits you're going to keep into the post-lockdown world? Anything you've been doing different?
Well, this jar of sweets was keeping me going, as you can see.
That's a huge jar.
jar. No, joking aside,
it's been a long lockdown.
I think what's keeping me going, I mean, obviously I've got the time to just again just be really I'm coming up with lots of new ideas, more than I've done before. I'm having the headspace to really think about the brand and where we want to go, what can we do, what is doable. We can't just throw money at technology. We haven't got a pot of money right now, but how can we serve our communities? The power of collaboration, I'm loving all of that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just getting on the phone. I'm talking to as many people as I can. I'm throwing ideas out there that may happen this week. They may happen next year. But I just know that I'm planting those seeds so that when the time is right, we can do it. Yeah. And just literally just doing what I can to keep Accountex alive and myself and my wonderful team in a job, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all any of us can do at the moment. It's kind of one day at a time and just do the best you can for the community. Well, it has been fantastic talking to you today. I could sit and talk to you for the rest of the day about stuff, I'm absolutely sure. But Zoe, if people want to catch up with you, what is the easiest way for them to connect with you?
Oh, I love a LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm the one with the silly surname. So it's Zoe Lacey-Cooper. Find me on there. I'm always in the blue blazer. That's my branding. I'm known as the woman in the blue blazer. So my hair colour may change, but my blazer stays the same colour. So just look me up on LinkedIn, Zoe Lacey-Cooper. Great to chat with you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for speaking, as I say. Good luck with your next event, and we look forward to seeing you back on the show floor next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much there to Zoe for her time. I really enjoyed speaking to her. I say that after I talked to every one of our guests, but hopefully you picked up on the energy in that conversation, and we carried on chatting for quite a while after we finished recording, and actually the rest of that afternoon kept sending each other emails saying, God, I feel really inspired today. I feel like I've really had a chance to talk to somebody in the industry and things feel a little bit more positive. So I am really looking forward to meeting Zoe in her blue jacket on the show floor next year. So next week we have a bit of an unusual episode coming up, actually from a supplier, an engineering company who usually work in the exhibitions industry, but John Knight of EF Engineering got in touch with me a couple of months ago actually just to say, look, we had a bit of downtime over the summer and we've come up with a solution that we think will help exhibitors feel more safe and visitors feel more safe coming back into the event arena. And I think it's really important that we look at some of those solutions as well as just being optimistic. There are loads and loads of solutions out there that are helping us all feel safer. So I am chatting to John Knight of EF Engineering next week about the solution that they have come up with to helpfully get exhibitions open more safely. The week after that will be our final episode of the year. And what we're wanting to do is do a mashup of our Christmas wishes. So we've got in touch with a number of our previous podcast guests and said, if you want to send us your contributions about your Christmas wish for the industry for 2021 and your Christmas greetings, we're going to put all those together in a compilation episode and share that with you all. So whether you've been on the podcast before or not, if you work in the industry and think you have something to say and you want to wish your peers a very happy Christmas, then please feel free to do it through us. Just get in touch with me via LinkedIn or email and I'll let you know how you can be part of that Exhibitionist compilation episode. So thank you once again for listening. It's been great having you on the other side of the mic. You can get in touch with us in all the usual ways over on the website www.inspiringexhibitors.com. There's also a new blog on the website talking about the two big things that have come out of virtual events, which are content and data, and what that means for you as an exhibitor and how you can use it to your benefit as you plan for your 2021 campaigns. That's it from us for this week. We look forward to you joining us again next week. And in the meantime, happy exhibitioning.
Pop over now to inspiringexhibitors.com to subscribe to our newsletters, blogs, and future podcasts that keep you up to date with the latest news and industry insight. While there, you can also find out more about our book, The Exhibitionist, Inspiring Trade Show Excellence. Once again, thank you for listening, and we hope to see you on a trade show floor soon.